And today's topic is significance and increasing role of company secretary. Friends, as you know, that CS as a profession is not that old, but still now it is old, and it has passed its journey. And we have with us a veteran of our profession, Sir N.L. Bhatia Sahib. As welcome, Bhatia Sahib. It's our
Yeah, thank you.
really privilege to
Yeah,
have you on our webinar. Of course,
thank you.
our Sudhakar and Bala sir is there. Friends, as we say that as regards significance and increasing role of company secretary, it's an apt topic as on today because the paramount shift in the position and role of company secretary nowadays with the amendment. Earlier, we were taken as a, you can say, the protector or ensuring that whatever we discuss in the board meeting and in the members meeting, the decision making process is taken as per the law. The same is recorded properly. Then it went ahead and it says that compliance of all corporate action. Then it went ahead and it says governance, investor protection. Then it went ahead, all stakeholder protection. Then it went ahead, it says that even the organization governance and the awareness of all the people involved, it's becoming that like a bat, the torch of compliance and governance of an organization and of industry is in the hand of now company secretary. So the earlier role of only the compliance officer has now turned into also a position which create awareness of compliance and governance, not only ensure that himself or herself or the department or the board, but by each and every member of the organization. What is recent development which shows that it is the duty of CS, it has become a paramount duty of CS, not only to ensure compliance and governance, but to make aware each and every person of the organization what is compliance, what is governance, and make them part and parcel of this entire process. It's a big, big responsibility for the CS and totally radical change in the position of company secretary. Friends, nowadays, people in the organization is started recognizing company secretary. And the first thing, of course, KMP is the statutory recognition, but not necessarily statutory recognition. People are knowing it's a requirement. It's a backbone of the organization. It's the image of governance, compliance. The whatever company secretary does is the image of the organization. With that backdrop, let me formally introduce our uh, panelist, Bhatia Sahib. It doesn't need any introduction actually. Each and every person knows him. He is such a our guru, we always say, for everyone. But as a formality, let me introduce. Bhatia Sahib is a diploma in tax management from Bombay University. He is a fellow member of ICSI, former managing partner of NL Bhatia Associates. He is having over more than 50 years of experience in all facets of company law, capital market regulation, joint venture agreement, venture capital. He was independent director of Pyramid Thyrocare Limited, ICICI Investment Management Company Limited, Tramp Paper and Allied Private Limited. He was trustee of Investor Protection Fund of Bombay Stock Exchange Limited. He was member of Advisory Committee of SEBI Investor Protection and Education Fund. He is founder chairman of Investor Education and Welfare Association, a SEBI registered association. He has authored a book on takeover games and SEBI takeover regulations. Friends, this is the very small introduction for him. But I can say each and every CS knows he has contributed immensely in the development of CCGRT. He has personally taken so much efforts to set up that CCGRT and many other initiative he has taken. He has lot many feather in the cap, but always remain very silent about his achievement. We owe him lot as a professional. Welcome, Bhatia Sahib, and
Thank you.
thank you. I'll request Bhatia Sahib to say a few words on the role of CS, his role, and then Mr.
Okay.
Sudhakar and Mr.
Ah,
Bala you can take, and then the present. Thank you.
okay. Okay. May I start?
No, no, Bhatia sir,
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Bhatia sir, I wanted to say some few words. I think
Okay.
Yeah.
again, again a very privilege. We being a part of this webinar. Sahib, we have taken this initiative almost 1.5 years. When we had this the tough time, COVID time. So earlier, we used to do internal. Then Dipti one day said, let's make it public, and this is how this, every Saturday we have a knowledge sharing, and every day we see that this grows and we achieve those qualitative discussions. So I think Bhatia, again, many of us probably know him, all senior people, but those youngster, may not be knowing. But he's a creator of CCGRT. He's the one. If Of course there is a long story how this CCGRT has happened, but he has personally put in his money just to make sure that this area or those land been bought by the ICSI. Sahib, salute Sahib, tamara mate. And he is the 5 decades of experience, and he has seen the journey of a CS professions, right from those certification of annual returns. I remember, we have a Bipin Acharya Sahib, Mahendra Bhai Gupta. Even our own Mr. Bala himself, has such a rich experience. And, we are very privileged, Sahib, you being a part of this discussions, because many of us probably do not know how this, this journey has happened from those, small certification to now become a, we have recognitions in all the statutes, regulations, in SEBI, MCA, and, many places. And of course, Dipti rightly said, we owe a lot as a CS profession. Saib, you have done a lot of things for the institute. There are, there are unlimited, so whenever if I go to CCGRT, Mr. Bhatia Sahib, Gopal Chalam, they are all very iconic. Mr. Bala will agree with him. He's also contributed a lot, coming all the way from Pune to give a MSOP lecture and all. It was something, amazing, and you require a lot of passion to go there, because, going all the way to CCGRT was a big challenge and tough time. Yeah, Sam, thank you very much. And Mr. Bhatia, you can take
Yeah.
over.
Okay. Thank you, Atul. May I start?
Yes, please go ahead. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir.
See, I will give a historical perspective of this profession, how this profession has taken birth, what was the scenario before, and what was the need to create a profession of company secretary. Before the birth of the company secretary, the companies were managed by an institution called managing agents. And over the period, many times government has tried to control their activity in the interest of the companies and the investors, but they could not succeed. Ultimately, it was decided that to secure the interest of the company and the investor, a new profession should be taken place, and the new profession is Company Secretary of India. Initially, it was a department of company affairs which used to take the exams for company secretary. And that is why in 1965, when it started, I became the first student and then became the member in 1967, got a diploma certificate like called diploma in GDC, Government Diploma in Company Secretaryship.
GCD.
So that, yeah,
GCD.
yeah. So that was the beginning. And thereafter, in 1968, the government created a Section 25 company. That was on 4th October 1968, that a Section 25 company was started, and the government gave all its responsibility to that Section 25 company. And that is how the beginning of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. Thereafter, on 1st of January 1981, the by Act of Parliament, the institute was notified as a government recognized institution. So that is how the growth of this company secretary has taken place over the period. Now, after 68, the problem was how to create the quality and quantity number of professionals. Therefore, in 1974, it was decided that all those people who are working as a company secretary in a company will be made the member of the institute. So we have many members who were not passed any exam but became the company secretary by virtue of the act, provision of the act. And there have 1974 onwards, this journey has taken place. And thereafter, the company secretaries, programs and examinations and everything was conducted by the institute. And the first conference was taken in 1972, which took place in South in Madras, Tamil Nadu. And there we met some people, and there how some relationship with members, fellow members from our city and different cities were made. I was at that time working in Kanpur with JK organization and joined from there. One of my friends went from Bombay, and we made a good group to there. And thereafter, 1982, the voluntary requirement for practicing company secretary was introduced. And I registered myself as a voluntary practitioner. And as Mala Sahab mentioned, some of the reports were there. And thereafter, in 1990, the recognition was given not only on a voluntary basis, on a mandatory basis. That is how it started. Thereafter, the profession was required to strengthen and more compliance oriented. So therefore, the requirement of practicing company secretary to see that they are carrying out these compliances and ensure that they are properly complied with. There is slow. In 2013, the basic change came by Companies Act 2013. Prior to that, under the 1956 Act, their recognition was only as a principal officer and carrying out duty as a clerical and other ordinary things. I remember one case where a company secretary under 56 Act has given an acknowledgement for loan, and the company took a stand that his acknowledgement is not valid because he is not a management personnel. And there how the company was justified and succeeded in that case. Thereafter, under 2013, we have this change in the organization and became the managerial personnel, key managerial personnel. Therefore, this key managerial personnel, then the role of company secretaries as a managerial personnel has improved. And as Dipti said, it is growing every day from here and all now more and more responsibilities. In fact, now if you go to a big listed company, a company secretary, they say a company secretary requires 3 company secretaries. That was a statement made by an NSA expert. Okay, now you read a 3 company secretaries. 1 company secretary is busy only with compliance with the meeting, board meeting, committee meetings, and other meetings every quarter. So he is either preparing draft or minutes and holding the meeting and all those things. So he is one company secretary is required for that purpose only. Another is required for compliances. Third is required to see the compliances carried out by other departments. So that is how the role has kept on increasing. And now the time has changed, and we are now required that the greater responsibility will come under ESG, that is environment, social, and governance issues. So this is the new thing. And another thing which is taking place is the growth, development of technology. With the development of technology, the requirement of company secretaries will be changed altogether. It will be a total transformation. It will be a total transformation that now technology will take many of the issues with the company secretary in employment and in practice are doing. All these compliances will be taken over by the robot or the artificial intelligence, and the company secretary's role will change on the more sophisticated side of the organization. So therefore, we are going to see a bigger transformation, and the coming generation will have to be equipped with all these things so that they can cope up with the organization and compliance requirement and social responsibility. So I think this is a broader perspective of historical journey of the institute and the profession. So with that, I I will request Mr. Bala, Mr. Sudhakar ji will take over.
Thank you.
Thank you,
very
Bhatia
much.
sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sudhakar.
If I can start? Yeah, good. Yeah, good morning, all participants. And this, in fact, this, as Mr. Bhatia has rightly mentioned, our journey as a company secretary was a long way we have come across. I mean, it is about 81 we have started formally, we can say that. So we have crossed about 50 years of the journey as company secretaries. However, for the last 40 years, I have become a member of this institute in the year 1985. From there till date, the only perennial question still it is there is that company secretaries always compare themselves with the chartered accountants and always feel that they are the second-class citizens. In fact, right from the beginning of the profession, despite the fact I am a chartered accountant myself and a company secretary, I find that the syllabus of this course, company secretaryship, and also that the content of the study material is to be always good. So the knowledge-wise, according to me, company secretaries are always having an edge over the chartered accountants. But the training what we get in the chartered accountancy, that 3-year smart. So quite a number of times I said this in several forums in those days especially, that as a company secretary, what we have is the knowledge, but what we don't have is the street smartedness. In case of chartered accountants, they have the street smartness, but because of that, they used to get the things done. They are the get-goers, which we were not. But unfortunately, what happened is, till date, we are having the same mindset more or less. Sometimes we compare ourselves with the lawyers. Sometimes we compare ourselves with the chartered accountants. But according to me, if you say that the profession of chartered accountancy is there since 1949, Profession of cost accountancy is since 1959, and profession of company secretary is since 1981. Of course, profession of lawyers is over a century. So when we compare ourselves with them, we have to understand that what they have, what we don't have. I told you about chartered accountants already, but when we compare ourselves with the lawyers, what they know is they know how to read in between the lines, which we are still not able to get that ability of reading in between the lines. What we do is only we read what is there. We don't read what is not there. That is the ability which we have to develop it. I made a small presentation that I don't want to skip a few things because I want to bring all those things. So let me allow to make my presentation. I'm sure you are able to see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we started in the year 1887. Actually, this profession was very old profession. I'm not talking about India, but I'm talking about in general the profession. But unfortunately, in those days, in the year 1887, that if you see the Lord Ishar M.R. propounded in a case of Burnett, Horse and Company, that secretary is a mere servant and his position is to do what he is told. In fact, when I became a member of this institute in 1985, I felt that secretary of the company, this is what we read. After that, when I read this case law, I was a bit upset. Secretary is a mere servant. And then my guru, Mr. D.C. Jain, who was the past president of the institute, said that, why don't confine yourself to this particular judgment only, go further down. Then he showed me this particular case law, which is a Panorama Developments case, where Lord Denning observed that times have changed. A company secretary is much more important person now than he was in 1887. Now means 1971 I'm talking about. So Lord Denning said that company secretary is an officer of the company with extensive duties and responsibilities and is no longer a mere clerk. This gave me an amount of confidence. Then Mr. D.C. Jain also told me a doha of Tulsidas in Ramcharitmanas, wherein it said was that Sachiv Ved our Guru, Tini jo priya bolahi, bhai our aas, Raj Dharam our tan, Tini karohi vegahi nas. This means that when a secretary, a doctor, and a teacher use pleasing words because of fear or hope of reward, the result is that the country, we may take it as a company, religion, and health forthwith go to the wane. So it is the company secretary who has to advise the board, advise the company as far as the governance and compliance are concerned, without any kind of hesitation, without any kind of fear, because fear or hope of reward. Fear means that he may be thrown out of the company if he say a few things what the management don't like it. Still, this is the mindset of several company secretaries that if they say the management don't like what they say, they may be thrown out. I always say that how many company secretaries they will throw? Because it is the responsibility of the company secretary to say what he is supposed to say. And if that, because of fear, if you are not able to say tomorrow, God forbid, the non-compliance takes place, again, you only will be blamed. So when Mr. Jain has given the importance of the secretary in this particular doha, in those days, I used to write poetry also. So I wrote a poem for myself with which I have started my journey as a company secretary. That poem goes like this. I am a company secretary. Institute is my guru. Law and justice are my parents. To me, Ramaya is like Ramayana. Bhandari is Bharata. Bhandari is one book which we used to have in those days. In those days, we don't have this many number of books. Ramaya and Bhandari are the only two books for a company secretary. So I used to take Ramaya as Ramayana and Bhandari is the Bharata. And all other the bare acts are like Vedas. Profession is my religion. Honesty, sincerity, and simplicity are my trinity. My behavior is my prayer. My assignments are my boons. And my achievements are my salves. This is the essence with which I have started my corporate life as a company secretary and as a chartered accountant. According to me, company secretary is a charioteer. In fact, recently I wrote one article which is there also in the LinkedIn. You might have all observed, read that. So I always elevate the position of a company secretary like a charioteer, because when Arjun refused to fight the upcoming battle at Kurukshetra, Krishna overcome Arjun's reluctance to fight. So according to me, the function of a company secretary is to guide the board, to run the company on the path of dharma in compliance with all the applicable laws, as Krishna did for Arjun. But when we are equating our role to the Lord Krishna, then obviously we have to enhance our knowledge and skill sets and abilities to guide the board also to that level. In fact, Mr. D.L. Mazumdar, who was the first finance secretary, said in the year 1953 in one of the conferences that just as the modern government can't be run without the secretariat, no modern company management can be carried on without a company secretary. So the contemporary company secretary, according to me, is much more than a note taker at board meetings or a mere servant of the board, and has been entrusted upon with a greater role by the regulators. Thus, the role of a company secretary is transformed from an administrative servant of the board to an advisor of the board as of now. This is a great transformation according to me. It is the only profession. I always tell the students of company secretaries when I go for MSOP or SMTP earlier, those training sessions, I always say that this is the only profession which gives you access to the boardroom from day one. No other profession gives you this kind of an access. And some profession, they never even saw the boardroom. Some senior management officials might not have seen the boardroom, whereas this particular profession enables us to step into the boardroom right from the day one. At the same point of time, Companies Act 2013 has given the great two recognitions and has boosted the profession as well as the image of the profession and as far as the significance of the company secretary in the corporate sector. These are, one is the recognition as key managerial person if you are in service, and another one is the secretarial audit, which you have been rewarded with if you are in practice. Now, in fact, yesterday I was in one webinar where we have completed 1 decade of Companies Act 2013. So now we have to see that we are 10-year-old as a company secretary, as a KMP, and we are 10-year-old as a secretarial auditor. So maybe we have to look back during this 10 years, what is my growth as a KMP, or what is my growth as a secretarial auditor? Have I improved upon prior to 2013? What was my role? What was my knowledge and skill sets? Post 2013, what is my knowledge and skill sets? In the past 10 years, how I could grow myself? And similarly, we have to establish a vision for ourselves in the next 10, 20 years, where I am going to be, where I want to be. Because as we all know that we are passing through the Amrit Kal, at the same point of time, for the next 25 years, our Prime Minister is having a great vision and hope as far as India is concerned. We are going to become the superpower and no one can stop us. So we have to accelerate the pace of our actions as far as our profession is concerned, tighten the seat belts, improve the knowledge levels, improve the skill sets, abilities, everything, so that we can meet the challenges when the opportunity comes to us. Irrespective of the position in the organizational hierarchy, as far as the listing regulations are concerned, company secretary is a senior managerial person. Similarly, under the Companies Act also, he is the key managerial person. So irrespective of the position in the organizational hierarchy, as far as the corporate hierarchy is concerned, company secretary found a place alongside with the CEO and CFO of the company. Apart from that thing, another great boon for the profession of company secretaries as far as ICSI is concerned, Companies Act 2013 has given a great recognition of 2 secretarial standards, which ICSI has recommended and which has approved under 118 subsection 10. According to me, these standards insulate the key managerial persons and the directors, in particular independent directors, from their responsibilities and accountabilities. There were several things about which Companies Act was silent. Those issues have been addressed in SS1 and SS2. I am not going to talk about that thing. We will do it in another time. But definitely Secretarial Standard 1 and 2 insulate the key managerial persons and the directors, which will save them from the rainy day. Finally, I would like to say that everybody and anybody and every profession has to have their own SWOT analysis. If I take a SWOT analysis of our profession, we have strengths, we have our own weaknesses. Our major strength is that the statutory recognition and unique position. No other profession has been given this statutory recognition. Company secretaries is the only profession where the law says that mandatorily you have to appoint the company secretary. No other profession got this. But sometimes this becomes our weakness, over dependence on the recognitions and lack of confidence. Whenever the company that the ministry wants to increase the amount from 25 lakhs to 50 lakhs, 50 lakhs to 2 crores, 2 crores to 5 crores, 5 to 10, there used to be a big commotion among the professionals. And okay, that we will lose the jobs, we will lose this, that, whatnot, and all. So that kind of over dependence should not be there. Proximity to the board and top management. This is another great strength of ours. As I was mentioning, right from day one, you can enter into the boardroom. So you have a proximity to the board. You have a proximity to the senior most management. No other profession give you this kind of recognition. So it is up to you how you establish yourself among them. But our weakness is the lack of skills and confidence and amount of presentation. When I interact with the director says always, the company secretary is not having the confidence what he is supposed to have in the boardroom. So which we should overcome. We have to understand that, yes, this is a weakness of ours. We should overcome that. The third strength what we have is recognition and confidence of the trust of regulators. Ministry of Corporate Affairs has a great confidence and trust as far as ICSI is concerned. That is a great strength for the profession. But primarily engaged, we are into more procedural and support services, not into the strategic services, which we need to come. As far as the threats and remedies are concerned, the greatest of the greatest threat, as Mr. Bhatia has mentioned, about technological developments. In fact, this AI, robotics, machine language, all these new technical tools are there. Even the old people like us, we may not be able to keep the pace with that, but the youngsters always have to have. You have to see that whether AI is a threat or opportunity. That is up to you to decide it. If you take it as a threat, it will eat you out. If you take it as an opportunity, you can face the challenges. Withdrawal of the recognition by the regulators at any point of time, the ministry is under pressure that why this recognition is there. Let us remove that mandatory requirement of appointing a company secretary. What will happen then? So that is a threat. Competition from other sister professions. Finally, the complicated legislations. The legislations are becoming complex day by day. So we need to develop the ability to interpret and understand the complexities and to deal with the same. Opportunities, absolutely galore. As I told you, Companies Act 2013 and listing regulations have given so much of opportunities to us. It is up to us how we will take and encash these opportunities. And finally, the image in the society. Earlier, people used to say secretary means it is the stenographer kind of thing. Those days have gone. People know that who is a company secretary and what is his importance. The only thing is that we have to accelerate the pace of the profession, for which we as professionals have greater responsibility. Thank you very much. With this few words, what I would like to say, as you all know that I am very closely and very passionately attached with this profession. Certain principles of this, I entered the profession, and whatever the aspirations I was having in the year 1985, to the large extent I could achieve it. This profession has given me fame, money, recognition, and everything whatever I would aspire in my life. I'm sure that every one of you also, I thought of sharing some of my experiences, and I'm sure it will be beneficial to every one of you and have imposed the kind of confidence what is required. With this, Bala sir, you are taken forward. Thank you very much.
Sudhakar ji, I would like to say that
sir,
you have given a correct picture of the profession. What we need to do is to the syllabus of the company secretary needs to be upgraded so that the development which are taking place with regard to technology and with regard to ESG, they are brought into picture, because they are the things which are going to take a greater place in tomorrow's company secretary's role. Secondly, you said about the skill. I would like to say that when this NCLT was started, we found that our members were not able to express in a way which the other professionals were able to do it. And therefore, we saw when the residential company secretary course was started, those boys were doing very well, both on both skills, on presentation, on talking and everything. So I think we need to think in those terms also, how to improve the skills of the company secretary students. It is the greater responsibility of our profession that to develop these skills in the coming generation members. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bhatia sir. Thank you very much. Bala sir. Sir, you are on mute.
Good morning to all of you. After we heard from the two great stalwarts about our company secretary's profession, our travel, etc., and other thing and all, I don't think I can add anything more than that. But however, I would like to share certain things. As Mr. Bhatia was telling, in those days, I think in 1950 onwards, there was a government diploma, GCD, which was there. He also said GCD subsequently became a membership of the company secretary. And similarly, there was also something called the Associate Secretary of Management, ASM, institute which is in Calcutta. They were also conducting the examination in par with the GCD. And the people who passed the examination, they were also eligible to be a company secretary. Incidentally, I have passed that examination. I am even today, I am actually holding a FASM certification from them. Of course, later when the Company Secretaries Act came and the examination, again I passed the Company Secretary examination and I got my recognition. Although there was a provision, we can get enrolled from here to there. That is one thing. But the thing is, what has happened is Company Secretaries Act also, it has come somewhere in the 1975, if I remember, the voluntary compliance certificate has been introduced in the 1956 Act. And again, there was a provision for appointment of the company secretaries. Some or other, until the 1980 Company Secretaries Act was introduced, 1981, the recognition was given. There was not enough company secretary profession was actually taking up. I could actually see only from 1981 onwards, company has started becoming recognizing the company secretary, especially after the Companies Act has came into force. Then that time again, you know, what happened in many of the multinational companies, especially the companies which are having a collaboration with the overseas, they were all very much concerned about the man count. So what they have done is, as Sudhakar said, that he is also a chartered accountant, a company secretary. There are a lot of companies, there was a chartered accountant and company secretary. They combine the position, chief financial officer come company secretary, finance manager come company secretary, in order to fulfill the statutory requirement. That is what they have actually done in a few cases. Sudhakar, you might recall this. Somewhere in 1981, 82, these are all the things which are actually happening. Then ultimately, as Sudhakar
Up to the year 1993, I was always acting as manager finance come company secretary.
Yeah, that's what. That's what. That is what. So these were actually happening. But it is only after the 1985 that the Enron company, which was actually established, and the biggest scandal relating to financial scandals and plus governance related issue which actually came to the light. Ultimately, after the 1985, the company was established. In 2001, the company went to liquidation. And arising out of it, the big five has become big four. Arthur Anderson, who was the auditor, they have been taken for the charge. And not only that, the people who are associated, including the company secretary, chartered accountant, auditors, everybody was taken to a task, and Arthur Anderson has actually got hold of the year 2002. Arising out of that, immediately across the globe, there were a lot of concerns about the governance, there are a lot of concerns about the compliances, how to go about it, what is to be done. This became a very concern. Then what happens is in globally, there are a lot of developments that have taken place. The first development, which I recall it in UK, I think in 1994, if I'm not mistaken, they formed the Cadbury Committee report, which actually came. Followed by the Cadbury Committee, again the Greenberry Committee came, and after that, the Harper report has come. Similar developments have taken place also in the other places, etc. Then similarly in South African countries also the King 1, King 2, King 3 Code of Corporate Governance, which was actually introduced. Then after all these things, the due recognition has started coming for the company secretaries, recognizing as a compliance officer, throwing a lot of responsibility on him. That is how the company secretary has actually developed. In fact, in 2013 Act, our Indian Act is actually spelled out the duties and responsibilities of the company secretary for the first time in 205 section. But the same thing has been done by South African Companies Act in the year 2011. They actually specifically spelled out the company secretary's duties, etc. and other thing and all. Anyway, cut the story short. What is happening today? Today, as Sudhakar puts it, we are doing many things. Government is actually bringing lot of reform, lot of regulation, lot of amendment, lot of changes. That is one. And second side, we are also seeing lot of employment opportunities happening. There are digitalization happening. There are many new startups and MSME companies which are actually coming up. With the result, we are getting lot of foreign direct investment which is coming, and a vibrant market we actually see nowadays. Coupled with that, the enormous digitalization is like taking place actually. As Mr. Bhatia Saab said, with the digitalization actually taking place, many things which is actually done by us will be automated by the automated process. It will be done routinely by the artificial intelligence, which is going to be the future of the day. So, really speaking, Sudhakar also puts it very rightly, whether it is a threat, whether it is an opportunity. I will definitely say it is a very good opportunity for us. Because instead of involving the routine, repetitive thing, what we are doing, these all the things can be actually given to the machine language programs and artificial intelligence things, etc. and other things and all. Because we have a lot of things to do in the light of various reforms which are coming up, digitalization which is actually coming up. We have many challenges actually in that. And that is why the recognition is also there as a KMP. We have been recognized in par with the CEO, CFO, sort of the things in the hierarchy of the company secretary. So naturally, what is going to happen? I actually look at the future of the company secretary. Future of the company secretary, Sudhakar has given a very good case law which has happened in 1887, which was the beginning of the case law, where the company secretary was talked about the servant. That was a very popular case law which was discussed in all the forums and many times. So here, from there, our future is definitely going to be like a compass which is going to guide the board in future. That is what it is going to be like in the future. And all along, people have been thinking, oh, company secretary, we can call this information, ask for the information, he'll give the information whenever we want. No, gone are those days. Company secretary is not only going to get the information, he is going to analyze the information, he has to put it in the right perspective, he is going to actually put what is the pros and cons, he is going to give a sort of advice to the board. In the future, I am seeing a company secretary's profession is going to be an advisor to the board in future days to come. That is what I am actually seeing it with all the development which are taking it. Another thing is that today what we are doing is, as Sudhakar puts it, we are all taking a proactive approach. Because there are fear. He said also, what will happen if I am thrown out of the employment, etc. Yes, it is there. I can also see in many places, people keep quiet. If I say what management will, if I approach, how can I oppose my boss? All the things which are actually there. So that attitude is definitely how to change. We'll have to come at what you call courage of conviction. We'll have to actually take it to the confidence of the board, and we'll have to tell the board what is right, what is wrong, what can go, what are the consequences. We'll have to continuously educate the board, which we'll have to do it. In fact, many company secretaries, what they normally do is every board meeting, they actually have one day prior, a formal meeting with all the directors. They actually present to them what are the various amendments taken from the last board meeting, this board meeting, where we are preparation, what is required to be done, what is the approvals are required, what company need to do, where the board approval required, where the shareholder approval required, any regulatory approval required. All these things are educated to the board. That is one thing we need to do in the right perspective. That is going to be the one where we can educate the board so that board always support. Without the board support, company secretary cannot do anything. That is a very fundamental thing. And again, we are all today process-based. He also addressed that as one of the threat and opportunity when he was talking about it. We will to actually change our attitude from the process-based to the principle-based. This is what it is going to be the case. And lastly, I would also like to tell, as Sudhakar said that he has traveled a long way and he is satisfied with the profession. Equally, I never wanted to become a company secretary. In the company where I was working, somehow or other the company went to public, they want to have a company secretary because the head count, I was the controller of accounts that time. I'm talking about somewhere in 1990s. So as Sudhakar puts it, you will be the controller of accounts and company secretary because we don't want to increase the head count. That is how it has happened. But once the listing started, we went to multiple listing. Multiple listing means we went to Bombay Stock Exchange, we went to Calcutta Stock Exchange. Those days, Bhatia will recall it. We have various stock exchanges, Madras, Calcutta, Kanpur. We had a Pune register office. So we are listed in Pune. We had offices in Madras. We listed in Madras. We had a manufacturing unit in Calcutta. We listed in Calcutta. We had a corporate office in Delhi. We got listed in Delhi. The multiple things which is actually happening those days with the different stock exchanges, etc., which forced me. Ultimately, I had given up the job of the controller of account. I became a full-time company secretary. That is one. Luckily, my board was very cooperative, understanding, supportive. With all the things, I could bring a lot of changes in our company. We could bring a lot of things. We can adjust the things, another thing and all, which really gave me a satisfaction. In the year 2007, I was actually awarded the second best company secretary of the world in 2007 by the Institute of Chartered Secretaries of UK, which is the greatest satisfaction I have achieved in my lifetime. This is the thing. So definitely speaking, company secretary has to travel a long way. There are very good future is there in future. We'll have to act with the courage of conviction. We'll have to tell the right thing to the board, and we'll have to ensure the compliance. We'll have to bring the corporate governance. Because the companies which are actually practicing a good corporate governance will definitely act as a, what we call a competitive differentiator. It will act among the people. All the people will be good. But at the same time, who's actually having a best governance practices will become a differentiator between the companies. That is where the travel is actually there. I think with this, I will ask Makarand to take the presentation. And we have a lot of things. In fact, he has prepared the very good presentation. We have many things to go through, and we can adding it on that. I request the participant to put your question clarification on the chat box so that we can answer then and there. Thanks a lot.
Bala,
Yeah. Yes.
I would like to say one thing.
Yeah.
That with the Corporate Governance Award and Secretarial Award, the recognition to the company secretaries has also come in that way. Because when you talk of Corporate Governance Award, there so much scrutiny is done by the institute that ultimately which are listed and eligible for award, there the role of the company secretary is displayed. And now the company which is getting the award also gets the award for his company secretary also. So this is one good thing. And when award is talked about, you are getting award from an institute of UK is a greatest recognition for the profession.
Thanks a lot, Bhatia.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Makarand, before you start, Mr. Pramod Shah, who is one of the doyens of the profession, he is raising his hand.
Yeah.
Pramod bhai, you want to say something very briefly? Pramod bhai, you can unmute yourself and you can speak.
Thank you, Pramod bhai, for coming on the webinar.
I don't know whether he is there or not there.
No, he's there, but I think...
He is there. He is there. He has also shared something on the chat box also.
Yeah. Otherwise, we can start and let him take in.
Correct. Yeah, whenever he wants to speak, he can.
And also,
I don't know whether participants can unmute themselves or we have to unmute them. Saddam, you please see that.
Yeah, Saddam.
Mr. Manoj Sunawala. Manoj, very briefly, if you can. Yeah, please do that.
Yeah. Saddam, allow unmute Mr. Manoj and Mr.
Manoj bhai and Pramod bhai also. Oh, there are so many hands rising. I think then Makarand will never get his chance to make his presentation there.
No,
But
let
anyway,
it be. Let it be, Sudhakar
yeah,
ji.
yeah.
This time, I think everyone is enthused, and that
I
is
agree.
really
I agree with
appreciable.
you, Dipti. I agree with you. We may extend
Let
by another
everyone
15 minutes.
speak. Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes. Manoj, you can unmute yourself. I think not happening. Saddam, you have to help them.
Yeah, it's working. Just give us 2 minutes. My IT
Yes.
people will connect. Just wait, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
And meanwhile, I want to say that
Yes, yes,
the
please
thing
do.
that
Yeah, I can see your hand also raised.
so so basically, I was telling that in this today's world, when it is becoming very internationally global profession, as regards compliance and governance, India is quite ahead in the governance, and we as a professional are ensuring that. So we can say that we are the you know the confidence for the investors. When we perform ourselves very well, investors feel that India is a country where they can invest, and that's why it is considered to be good. And friends, we are the each country has different name like charter secretary or corporate secretary or kind of thing, who carries out this duty of company secretary as we have in India, and we are the highest number in the world in our country. And rather, that's why for any compliance governance professional, we are the torch leader. So we have to behave, and then everyone will. That is the point I want to raise. Thanks. Yeah, Manoj or Pramod bhai, you can speak. Thank you.
Dipti, 2 minutes I'll take. You know, I was working in a company called the Fusito India Limited, where my superannuation age was 60. My service was extended for the further period of 3 years. But somehow or other, in the age of 61, the news of my award was actually there in the internet for quite some time. And I got a call from overseas and saying that there is a gentleman who's actually coming, he is meeting you in your place. The gentleman who happened to travel in my own, stay in my own society, he traveled down, he came. And he told me, gentlemen, this is the company in overseas. Here is the contract. You've been appointed as a company secretary in that company. You please get me your passport. I will give you the visa. We are traveling. Your appointment is confirmed. I'm talking the year 2007. Without any interview, without any application, without anything, I have been actually appointed as a company secretary in other overseas companies. Ultimately, in order to get the global experience, I resigned from the company at the age of 61. I took up the overseas job at the age of 61. I worked almost about 3 years until this recession started, etc. and other thing and done. And I traveled the multiple countries, etc. So that actually shows what you can deliver, what is your skill, what people are expecting. So long as you are able to deliver what is expected, your recognition will automatically come. This I would like to share with you.
Yeah, Manoj bhai.
Yeah. So I would like to
You can switch on the video also, Manoj bhai, if you want.
That's fine. See, I would like to say what Sudhakar ji has said and Bhatia sir has said. I would like to extend it. Sudhakar ji has tabulated very clearly what are the challenges and how we can overcome those challenges. Frankly speaking, for the youngsters in practice, please rise above V3 and your form filing and look at some other areas. And I would give you my exposure or experience. At the age 50, when I decided to practice, I never went into a regular practice. I have not taken a COP. I straight away ventured into the GRC, that is Governance, Risk and Compliance at that time. Nowadays, compliance is all machine learning and machine managed, AI and with software. So, see, as a company secretary, unless you have an advisory role, there is nothing for you. And going forward, it will be zero almost for you to do because everything will be done by the machine. So please rise yourself above all this routine work. And as Dipti ma'am has said, see, there is a lot of recognition in the Western world. My company is working, see, our 67% or 68% clientele is from Europe. And there, the ECG and governance has got the most recognition and most I would say they appreciate what we try to do. Being in Tata, I was recognized so many times, unlike Mr. Bala, but still I got very good recognition when I used to travel there and work with them. So there is ample opportunities available even now in India, because the India is rising, India is flourishing rather, and people from abroad are trying to seek job over here. So please, I request all my young fellow members to rise to the occasion and uprightly make yourself available for advisory roles. Thank you.
Thank you, Manoj bhai. Mr.
Thank you,
Mahesh
Manoj
Mathur,
bhai.
I think Mr. Mahesh Mathur also raised his hand.
Mahesh Mathur, you can speak.
सिर्फ जाना हो जा सकता अभी.
Pramod bhai, you are there? You want to speak? You can unmute and can speak. Okay, I think let us wait as and when they can.
Good morning to everyone.
Yes,
I'm
yes,
very
yes.
happy.
Yes.
I'm very happy to be here with you. I would like to mention that we are expanding as company secretaries in corporate area. We should be proud of our institute and the profession. We have got a lot of recognitions from statutory authorities, but sky is never the limit. So we have to still grow high. We have to maintain our status and the growth. And my congrats to all the youngsters group also, that they should contribute in the activities of the institute, whichever areas they are working and whichever region they are representing. So that will certainly give a boost to the profession also, and they will get a good training apart from getting training from their different organizations. So I would like to also mention and congrats to Dipti and Atul for bringing all talents together. It's difficult to get all the talented people together today, and we are very proud of both of them. And this is a continuous education which is going on every Saturday and also on the other days, working days also. So we are proud of both of them, and I'm wishing all the panel members and our moderator who has been a good family friends, especially to Navneet Bhai also, my regards to him also, and to all the other panel members. Thank you for the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Pramod
Pramod
bhai.
bhai.
Thank you, Pramod bhai.
I think we can start the presentation.
Yeah, we can start, yes.
Yeah, please start, Makarand.
So first of all, I would like to thank you, Dipti ma'am, Sudhakar sir, Bala sir, Ashwini ma'am, and Alifa ma'am for your continuous guidance throughout the presentation. I would like to thank Bhatia sir for his valuable for sharing his experience. I would also like to welcome all the participants who are present here to gain some knowledge and education. The focus of today's presentation is on the increasing role of company secretaries. So now I would...
Here, friends, I will intervene. I will like to really say that Makarand is a trainee and he has presented the presentation, but you can see the confidence and really happy for that. This is our future. Thank you. Yeah, Makarand, go ahead.
So the legal definition of a company secretary. So as per section 2, subsection 24 of the Companies Act, a company secretary...
We will start and then we'll give the time, otherwise lot of issues. Okay. Yeah, Makarand, go ahead.
So as per section 2, subsection 24 of the Companies Act 2013, company secretary or a secretary means a company secretary as defined in clause C of subsection 1 of section 2 of Companies Secretary Act 1980, who is appointed by the company to perform the functions of a company secretary under the Companies Act 2013. So the word secretary has been originated from the Latin word secretarius, and it also means a person to whom a secret is entrusted. It reflects the confidentiality of the role and the trust placed on the position. So the vision and mission of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. So the vision is to be a global leader in promoting good corporate governance, and the mission is to develop high caliber professionals facilitating good corporate governance. I would also like to give a brief introduction of the topic today. So, a company secretary is a member of the Institute of Company Secretaries of India, a statutory professional body in India, with the objective of promoting, regulating, and developing the profession of CS in India. The company secretary acts as a bridge for information, communication, advice, and arbitration between the board and management, and between the organization and its stakeholders. The company secretary, being an expert in corporate laws, capital markets, and securities laws and corporate governance, the company secretary is responsible for all the regulatory compliances of the company. So these are some of the values which all of the company secretaries must have. One is integrity, one is wisdom, and innovation. So we have to be innovative, and we also have to be proactive in our work. So here I've mentioned the emerging role of company secretary over the decade. So in the past, and also in the older Companies Act 1956, the company secretaries were recognized as the principal officer of the company to maintain the records of the company. However, in the present, the company secretary is recognized as the key managerial personnel under the Companies Act 2013 and is expected to provide professional guidance to the stakeholders, boards, directors, management, and other stakeholders on the governance aspect. And also about the future, the company secretaries will be future curators, analyzers, advisors, and leaders. So as a company secretary has mainly two opportunities in the domain, one to go in the employment and one in the practice. So now we would start with the employment first. So the company secretary in employment. So the Companies Act 2013 has brought in the concept of key managerial person. A company secretary has been recognized as the KMP under Section 2, subsection 51 of the Companies Act 2013. So the below mentioned companies shall have a whole-time company secretary appointed as per the Section 203 of Companies Act 2013. So every listed company and every private as well as public company having paid up share capital of 10 crore or more are required to appoint a whole-time company secretary. So the functions of company secretaries in employment. So Section 205 of the Companies Act mentions the functions of the company secretaries. So it is to report to the board about compliances with the provision of Companies Act to ensure that the company complies with the applicable SS1 and Secretarial Standard 2. To assist the board in conduct of affairs of the company, to assist and advise the board in ensuring good corporate governance, to facilitate the convening of meetings and attending board, committee, and general meetings, and maintain the minutes of these meetings. To do all such acts as assigned by the board, to guide the directors about their roles, duties, and responsibilities, to be a liaison between company and the stakeholder, to advise the board of directors of their legal obligations and legal requirements, and to carry out all other such matters as may be required. So a company secretary, a whole-time company secretary in employment is also authorized to act on behalf of the company and its board in front of the National Company Law Tribunal, also known as NCLT, Competition Commission of India, the Securities Appellate Tribunal, the Registrar of Companies, as well as in front of the RDs, the Securities and Exchange Board of India, the Consumer Forums, the Telecom Dispute and Settlement Appellate Tribunal, tax authorities, and other quasi-judicial bodies. So now I would read the roles of company secretaries under different laws. So under the SEBI Listing Obligation and Disclosure Requirement Regulation 2015, every listed company has to appoint a compliance officer. Under the SEBI Prohibition of Insider Trading Regulation 2015, a company secretary is designated as a compliance officer with respect to the who has a lot of scope under the trading plan and also on the UPSI. Under the Companies Act 2013, a company secretary has also a major role to play as a nodal officer and also has to liaise between the RBI with RBI and other authorities. And also under Companies Act 2013, a company secretary plays as an intermediary between the investors and the Investor Education Protection Fund. So the role of company secretary in ensuring compliance. So a company secretary plays a vital role in ensuring compliance, and he must be thorough with the structure of the company as well as the applicable laws. So broadly, compliance can be ensured by considering below points. First, he has to understand the applicable laws on the company as well as the compliance applicable under the law. So he has to also assess the risk which comes with the applicable law, and he has to mitigate the risk, and then he has to continuously monitor the compliance and then report the same to the board. And in addition to the above process, the company secretary must also be aware of the sectoral laws as well as the specific laws applicable to the entity. Mitigating legal and compliance risk. So steps and strategies that a company secretary can implement to help mitigate legal and compliance risk. So a company secretary should have up-to-date policies and procedures. He should he should make plans for training and education to his fellows or to the group. He should communicate with the board members with respect to the compliance as well as the risk. He should also maintain documents and records. And after that, a whistleblower program should also be introduced. So compliance leads to good corporate governance. So corporate governance is the application of best management practices, compliance of law in true letter and spirit, and adherence to ethical standards for effective management and distribution of wealth and discharge of social responsibility for sustainable development of all stakeholders. So there are 4 pillars of corporate governance, which are accountability, responsibility, fairness, and transparency. The benefits derived due to good corporate governance. Economic growth, positive impact on share price, reduced cost, the confidence of investors increase, and in the end, compliance in letter and spirit. So board support provided by company secretary. The company secretary ensures compliance with Secretarial Standard 1 and the guidance note issued by the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. He also helps in meeting logistics. He also helps in agenda preparation, minutes and record keeping, governance best practices. He also manages the conflict of interest. He also evaluates the board whenever required, information dissemination, and communication bridge. Other functions of a company secretary. So a company secretary also advises on foreign collaboration, setting up of subsidiaries in or outside India, advising the management on post-merger acquisitions or restructuring strategies, advising on legal and procedural matters under the Companies Act and the FEMA law, and also appearing as authorized representative of the company before National Company Law Tribunal and National Company Law Appellate Tribunal, central government, RDs, and registrar of companies. So now
just 1 minute, Makarand, please go back to the previous slide.
Yes, sir.
See that Makarand has mentioned here other functions of a company secretary. In fact, here I would like to say a few things, especially prior to Companies Act 2013. One of the main functions of a company secretary is to hold the board meetings and to maintain the minutes and other statutory records. The company secretaries used to feel shy of saying that they hold board meetings and they write the minutes. They used to say, sir, this is a routine activity which my subordinates do it, and I do XYZ, which is other than anything and everything other than the Companies Act, the company secretaries used to do. Because quite a number of times when I was in Reliance, I used to take the interviews of the people. Unfortunately or fortunately, the company secretaries were doing everything and anything. In this process, they were losing their core competency. Fortunately, Companies Act 2013 has brought the seriousness of the things. Now, I want to emphasize only one thing. Because being connected with the Secretarial Standard Board right from 2016 onwards till date, I know that the importance of when we draft the secretarial standards or the guidance notes and when we issue that, how much of importance the institute as well as the senior professionals we do give to these particular things. Fortunately or unfortunately, still people think that holding board meetings and writing the minutes are childish play. It is not so. Holding a board meeting is a very, very important function of a company secretary. When everything is going smooth, then it is okay. But God forbid there is a question of interpretation or is a dissent vote by a board of directors in the boardroom. Now, if the chairman asks you whether the dissent is to be recorded in the minutes or not, or a director make a statement and insist that the statement is to be recorded verbatim in the minutes, are you in a position to advise the chairman immediately? Just think about that. And similarly, when you're drafting the minutes, most of the time the company secretaries do is cutting pasting job. Sorry to say that, but it is what is happening. Because writing the minutes, drafting the minutes is an art. And it is a legal document. So we need to be very careful about while we are drafting that. Several times when this cutting pasting used to happen, I used to tell my colleagues earlier that whenever you do a cutting pasting also, you have to do it intelligently. Because what exactly you want to record in the minutes, you may have some templates, but don't do the cut and paste job. Number two, minutes, as you know, that is a form of an evidence which you can produce in the court of law if there is a kind of a tussle among the board of directors. It depends upon the ability of the company secretary, how beautifully he drafts the minutes, and there won't be any litigation because the clarity is there, the understanding is there, there won't be any kind of an issue. It will enable the court to come to a right judgment. If the minutes are not clear enough, if the minutes are just doing only verbose, but there is no clarity is there in that, then there will be a problem. So company secretary role in holding the board minutes, holding the meetings, as well as drafting the minutes and maintenance of records and ensuring the compliances. It is a great job. It is not such a small job. It is not a routine job. It all depends upon how much value addition you can bring as a professional to this one. Yeah, go ahead, Makarand.
Sudhakar, whatever you said is absolutely 100% I'm in agreement. Because in one of the companies, there was certain issues which is actually coming out of tax-related matter. Certain thing which cannot be done without the specific board approval on that particular issue. So matter actually went up to the Delhi headquarters of the income tax department. There what they said is, we would like to actually see the minutes of the particular meeting of that particular year to come to the judgment. That is what exactly has happened. As you rightly says, the company secretary has written the minutes such a elaborate way, incorporating everything which was actually available for sorting out the income tax purpose. Only thing the company has to take a special resolution in the board meeting saying, the minutes are permitted to be taken out of the place, etc., because he wanted to see the original minutes. Then the company secretary himself, he carried the minutes all the way to the Delhi and shown and satisfied the matter was sorted out. You are absolutely right as per the minutes writing is concerned. Second thing, you gave the example of cut paste. Cut paste also in one of the company, what has happened? This company was working with the group companies. Most of the agendas are actually common, but in case of the NPSC company, there are certain things which is related to the RBI regulations. All the items are being the common item. What he has done is he has written probably the minutes for the NPSC company. He has simply cut and pasted in the non-NPSC company. Because of that, company has actually landed into the problem, and ultimately all the directors and even the company secretary and CFO, they were all got the show cause notices. They have to go, and it has cost a hell a lot of time to sorting out the matter. Ultimately, they have to file the compounding application. They have to pay the heavy penalty. That is the result of the wrong cut paste without doing it, without editing it. That is there. Both the examples I have really seen in my life. You are absolutely right.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes, Makarand.
So now I would read out the company secretary in practice. So company secretary as a secretarial auditor. So the concept of secretarial audit and audit of non-financial information was introduced under the Companies Act 2013. In the earlier Companies Act 1956, there was a concept of annual compliance certificate, which a company was required to submit with the registrar of ROCs. So now the term got its due, secretarial auditor got its due recognition in the Companies Act 2013, wherein it was made mandatory for the listed companies and specific set of companies as mentioned under Section 204 to comply with secretarial audit. So now we would study about company secretary as insolvency profession. So a company secretary has also has a scope under the insolvency law. The company secretaries, having passed necessary examination, can take up matters relating to corporate insolvency resolution process, as well as also they can take up voluntary liquidation cases. They can also act as authorized representatives for a class of creditors in the meeting of committee of creditors during the CIRP process. Under various securities law, company secretary in practice is authorized to undertake internal audit of portfolio managers, stock brokers, clearing members, trading members, credit rating agencies, registrar and share transfer agents, reconciliation of share capital audit, internal audit and concurrent audit of depository participants. Under the SEBI listing obligation listing obligation and disclosure requirement regulation 2015, and under the specific regulation 24A, a company secretary in practice is authorized to issue annual secretarial compliance report to the listed companies and its material unlisted subsidiaries. So company secretary in certification services. So company secretary is also required to provide certification services. Pre-certification means certification of correctness of a document by a professional before the same is filed with the ROC in terms of requirement of Companies Act 2013. So pre-certification is a preemptive step. It ensures correctness. It also acts as a self-regulation and also aids in good governance. So a company secretary has also scope in intellectual property right related matters. The company secretary can act as a registered trademark agent and also advise their client on matters relating to intellectual property licensing and drafting of agreements. So a company secretary as other service provider. So a company secretary can also act, a practicing company secretary can also act as a scrutinizer for e-voting process and in fair transparent manner. He can also act as a company liquidator or provisional liquidator, and he can also become a technical member of National Company Law Tribunal. So a company secretary having 15 years of experience is eligible to become a technical member of the NCLT. Regarding the arbitration and conciliation services, a company secretary can also advise in commercial disputes, also act as an arbitrator or conciliator in the commercial disputes, and also contribute to drafting and the arbitration and conciliation agreements. So here we would study the recent incidents of penalty for non-appointment of company secretary. So the Ministry of Corporate Affairs had imposed a penalty of rupees 25 lakhs on MIB Therapeutics India Private Limited for failing to appoint a company secretary. This non-appointment was found to be in contravention of Section 203, subsection 1 of the Companies Act 2013. So now we would read about some case laws. So the regulators are now holding company secretary responsible for compliances. So in the case of Madras Fertilizers Limited case, the company had appointed a whole-time company secretary. The company had issued gift cards in lieu of refreshments to its stakeholders at the 54th AGM conducted via video conferencing due to COVID-19 restrictions. However, the company has violated clause 14 of Secretarial Standards 2 on the general meetings, read with section 118, subsection 10 of the Companies Act 2013. So a company cannot issue gift cards in lieu of refreshments. Is what it is stated under the clause 14 of Secretarial Standards 2, which the company had violated, and the company secretary, the company, the managing director, as well as the CEO and CFO were held liable and been penalized.
Just 1 minute.
1 minute, Makarand, 1 minute.
Yes.
Yeah.
In this particular case, really speaking, we'll have to go a little beyond. What has really happened is, what he said is correct. When the matter went to the adjudication officer, he held all the directors and he has actually penalized. The company actually went basically to the appellate authority, namely the regional director, because they felt the penalty was actually heavy. So in order to give a revision to that, etc., and all the things, they filed the case. But here what had happened in RD's appeal, RD, after going through the case very clearly, spelled out categorically in the judgment what is the responsibility of the company secretary. It's a very beautiful order. I think you all should read it actually. It says very clearly when the company appoints the company secretary alone is responsible in ensuring the requirement of the Companies Act read with Secretarial Standard 1 and 2 specifically. Because Secretarial Standard 2 very categorically spells out debarring the gifts in the distribution of the AGM, and the guidance notes also brought out very elaborately on this matter. So what RD has done is, he has actually nullified the order of no director can be held responsible for penal actions, and it is only the company secretary and the company secretary alone who is actually responsible for the compliances will have to be held for the responsible for this. What he has done is he has directed the order back to the adjudication officer to initiate a separate action only against the company secretary, not against the director. That was the gist of the case here.
Yeah. Now, see, Bala sir, as you rightly said that this was, I was about to say that, in fact, the RD said that it is the company secretary who is responsible for this and not the director. So he absolved the directors and he held the company secretary liable.
Correct. Absolutely, you're right. That is why he said people have to read, because he told what
in
the
fact,
company secretary.
There is one more case, Hindustan Graphite's case, if I am not wrong.
Yeah.
Wherein it happened, it was a listed company, and the company secretary, what he did was, when he was filing the shareholding pattern with the stock exchanges, he has depended upon the disclosure given by the promoters, and he simply forwarded that to the stock exchanges instead of without checking with the ROM. And ultimately, it turned out to be wrong figures. And what the judgment was given is that it is the company which is responsible, it is the directors who are responsible, and the company secretary, of course, they are responsible. But if you see the amount of penalty what they imposed on the directors, rupees 2 lakhs each, on the company secretary, on the company 2 lakhs, and on the company secretary 10 lakh rupees. Because regulator is always holding the company secretary on a high esteem, number one. Number two, it is his responsibility to guide the board. That is what the regulator always feels like. And in fact, in several forums, when I mention this thing, most of the company secretaries come and say that, "Hamara koi sunta nahi hai." Now, if you say that "Hamara koi sunta nahi hai," then nobody is going to excuse you. And similarly, crying babies will never be loved and give the affection. So you should not be a crying baby. Only thing is, what you have to be is that you need to develop your skill sets of convincing your management. And in fact, people also say this thing, "Sir, now you are a senior person, you can say all these things and get away. But we are at the junior most level and nobody listens to us." Please pardon me that. Because you have inherent statutory obligations and responsibilities. Tomorrow, for whatever the reasons it is, if you are not able to discharge that, and if it leads to non-compliance, and you are the first and foremost person who will be held responsible for this. Now, you have to be very clear that you want to be held responsible and accountable because of, again, the same thing, that fear of you will be removed, you will not be promoted, you will not be given increments, and all these things, if you are keeping quiet, and some non-compliances are going on, for such some time it may be go. Say, for example, in SS2, people, in fact, pardon my saying that several times the company secretaries are not fully acquainted with SS1 and SS2. I don't think any company secretary in his wildest dreams would have thought that under SS2, he will be held responsible for distributing a gift cards. Because SS2, this is the most, what's called a trivial issue, according to me. But now, ultimately, that company secretary, unfortunately, held responsible, and RD came so heavily on him, not on the executive directors. Now, if you ask the company secretaries, this is, according to me, people will always take this thing as a trivial issue. There are so many serious issues are there. But what I want to drive the point to the participants is that when the regulator is taking that such trivial issue, such seriousness, and if really major non-compliances happen, how they will take that thing, just imagine it. So please ensure that whether it is SS1, SS2 or any guidance notes or anything, please give the amount of importance what is to be given to them. I don't have time to read all those things is not an excuse at all. I can't understand this. It is not an excuse at all. There are a lot of webinars have taken place on these things. The recordings are available at ICSI. At Mehta and Mehta, we organized one series of webinars on secretarial standards, as well as RPT, independent directors, and all these things. The information is abundantly available with you. Knowledge is being disseminated by several corporates, as well as the senior professionals, as well as PCS firms, like organizing these webinars. It is up to you how much seriously you are going to take it, because the regulatory activism is increasing day by day. And it will be more in the coming years, because the regulator also is technologically increasing and enhancing his ability to catch hold of the non-compliances. Now, he don't need to hunt for anything. Everything the AI will throw him out. These are the non-compliances. And in the e-adjudication process, you will get a e-show cause notice. And hearing is only by exception. So these are all a few things which are in store for us. We have to rise to the occasion. Similarly, it is not only whatever I am saying, it is the people who are in service. Now, if you are in the practice and you are the audit side or certification side, please be very clear that your secretarial audits, each and every audit, especially if it is a listed company, the SEBI and stock exchanges are going through that very closely. And similarly, non-identification, I think that Makarand's next slide may be on that only, on RPT. That time I will add again. And okay, go ahead, Makarand. When that comes, I will add a few other inputs.
Sudhakar, two things you said actually. You are a senior person and all. But you are the senior person today. We all traveled from junior position only to come to the senior position. So we all seen what you are all talking today, and we actually surpassed all those things. That want us to remember one thing. Second thing is, you talked about the very trivial issue. And in between, you also said, the company secretary says, oh, this is the job, is not my job of writing the minutes and this and that, etc. But as you rightly say, very recently, there are n number of cases initiated by the adjudication officer on the very trivial issue on SS1 and SS2. To be very frank with you, the page numbers are not numbered.
Yeah,
meeting
correct.
numbers are not given. And the chairman's full signature is not found in the last page. It is only initial. The blank page is not actually scrolled out and cancelled. All these issues, there are penal action has been taken against the company secretary, and especially SS1, SS2, it was only the company secretary. At places, some or other, I do not know, even the CFO, they have been actually penalized, where the directors were not held responsible for this. This is very clear, because it is not the question of writing a minute. Somebody else can write a minute, there is no problem. But ultimately, to see whether it is serially numbered, it is written properly, everything is out here, SS1 is out here, SS2 is out here, is the responsibility of the company secretary. He has to actually ensure, he cannot just absolve and say something like excuses. It is a trivial job, it is not my job, and other thing. He cannot do that. So no longer it is going to hold good.
See, as per the Companies Act, wherever you mention the name of the director, within brackets, you have to give the DIN number of the director also. And in fact, I was going through this thing where ROC has again penalized the company secretary and the directors, because after mentioning the name of the director, the DIN number is not given. So what I'm trying to say is that company secretaries think that, again, I'm seeking your pardon for this thing, because the purpose of this webinar is to call a spade a spade. We have to do a kind of introspection what we are doing. There is no need to feel bad about anything. But what is happening, unfortunately, is that the amount of seriousness what the regulator is expecting from our profession, that amount of seriousness is not being exhibited. People have more trust in the WhatsApp universities than of the ICSI publications, which is not correct.
Not only that, when you talk about the DIN number, the rule which has been issued under Rule 8, which actually says, even MCA has also issued the circular, whenever you have any correspondence, any filing, anything which is submitted to the regulator, it has to contain the DIN number of the directors or the membership number of the professional, and it has to contain the designation of the person, and it has to also have the address that is there. In very recently, there is one of the case, I think it happened only in July 23. The person has actually mentioned his name and DIN number, but he has not mentioned his designation and also address. He simply put authorized signature. So action has been taken, have been severely penalized for this non-compliance. I have come across for the first time this sort of a thing. Earlier, I have seen the DIN number. I think probably this I came across very recently. So the regulators are nowadays taking very severely the issues, and they are interested in ensuring the SS1 and SS2 thoroughly. So we have to be careful.
Yeah, go ahead, Makarand.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I will say that it's understandable when the professional is young and all that, and a lot of responsibility and onus on is there. But always, friends, when the onus and responsibility is there, you have a corresponding right. You cannot be made subject to onus and responsibility without right. But yeah, many times rights are not given, it's to be exercised by you. So we have without fear has to exercise. So that is the point. Please exercise your right without fear. Because you are KMP, you are also equally important. It's not necessary for you, the job or the client is important. For the client and the company, you are important because you are KMP, you are also knowing many information. Thank you.
So there are many more cases like this where the various registrar of companies and regional directors are making reference to the function of company secretaries, as earlier we have seen under, which are mentioned in the section 205 of the Companies Act, and they are also holding him solely responsible for the compliance. The regulators are also referring to the secretarial standards and its compliance in many adjudication orders. The guidance note issued by ICSI is invariably referred. So the case where guidance note on related party transaction was referred by the regulator. So with respect to the company Sun Pharmaceutical Industries Limited, the practicing company secretary was penalized to a tune of rupees 1.5 lakhs for not disclosing certain related party transactions, and the regulators have discussed elaborately the guidance note of ICSI and related party transactions and the responsibility of the secretarial auditors as a practicing company secretary.
So this is what exactly I was saying, that the amount of importance what the professionals would have given to the guidance notes of ICSI, the regulators are giving more importance. In one of the cases where that SEBI, the IO, has asked the company secretary, haven't you read your ICSI guidance note on PIT regulations? And he showed him that what IO is saying is clearly there in that guidance note. It should stand is also the same. So he asked the company secretary, obviously whenever a person is going before SEBI, he must be a senior person only, not a junior person. So that, in fact, so these are a few issues are there like this, even in this case also, in Sun Pharma case also, the guidance note has been referred extensively. And
yeah,
unfortunately,
it is a very speaking order. Not only the guidance note, even he spelled out the role and responsibility of the practicing company secretary, what he is supposed to do under the guidance note. It is a very elaborate speaking order running about 1.5 pages on this.
Similarly, several company secretaries are giving the certificates under 24A of LODR, listing regulations, about the compliances of the, there is a caption that, compliance certificate of listing regulation, something is there. So when you are giving that, you should be very careful, because stock exchanges know what are the non-compliances. And when you are giving a certificate, if you say there is no non-compliance at all, how it will be? They know that what is happening. So, and same is the case with listed companies, secretarial auditors, when they are giving their secretarial audit report, if they say that the company is fully in compliant with the Companies Act and listing regulations. In fact, that is what Mr. Ajay Tyagi in 2018 in one of the conferences at Bombay, he said very clearly that the secretarial audits are not up to the mark. And NSE has conducted a study of the secretarial audits and how it was going and all those things, about 420 odd companies, something like that. So what I'm trying to say here is that as a secretarial auditor also, you have immense responsibilities and accountabilities. You have to be thorough with the guidance notes of the ICSI. You have to be thorough with secretarial standards of ICSI. Whether it is mandatory or not mandatory, immaterial it is. Suppose if there is an issue about the suppose dividend is concerned, SS3 is there, though it is not mandatory, but there is a standard is there. And there is a corresponding guidance note is there. Tomorrow, if I am the regulator, I can always take that, look, your own institute has taken a stand like this. Whether it is a mandatory or not mandatory, it is that doesn't matter. But this is what your institute's view, and this is what my view as a regulator also. And where you will go at that time, tell me. So people think that, okay, it is not mandatory, I don't need to study this at all. That is not correct. SS3 and SS4, though they are not mandatory, but they are their standards, especially about the dividend and the board's report. And their elaborate guidance notes are there. What should be given in the board in the board's report? And board report is a legal document. Anything you are not giving it, which you are supposed to give there, you are not given, means it is a non-compliance. And board report, preparation of a board report is not a child's play. The amount of information what is to be given in the board's report is mind-boggling. Sometimes I say that you have to have a separate department for that. And you cannot sit at the end of the year and prepare a board report. Board report, according to me, is to 24/7. You have to be ready with that, because so that you won't miss anything. Yeah, go ahead, Makarand.
Sudhakar, you will recall it much before 2013 Act, when the secretarial standard was introduced by the companies. I think 10 standards were introduced by the company secretary, one after another. And there are many companies, they used to include in the board report that we are actually complying with the secretarial standard issued by the Institute of Company Secretaries of India. Many companies were actually proud to include that. Even the chartered secretary, they used to publish, these are all the companies like that. I also was doing that. Some of the people have called me and they said, Bala, you are telling you are actually complying with the secretarial standard. Are you maintaining the company seal register? That was one of the standards. I told him, come, I'll show it to you. After I joined in the company, my first job was to go through the entire board minutes from the inception of the company. I have generated a separate document for the company seal register, which I am maintaining. It is not because secretarial standard says, it is because it helps me in my own way. Which resolution, what contract, what is actually approved by the board, and where we can locate, because we had about 6 manufacturing units and 24 branch offices and stock points. Many places we entered in the contract, etc. Every time some issue used to come, we used to struggle, don't they rejao. So instead of that, I created actually, that was one of the standards. So really, as you rightly say, it is voluntary or not voluntary, mandatory, not mandatory. It is in your own way, achieving the desired goals. It helps you. You must do it.
Say, for example, in Reliance, we used to have one register. Whenever we give a certified copy of a resolution to anybody, we used to have a register and the entry is to be made, certified copy of the resolution, given to whom and given to which department. That is how you will control it. Otherwise, what will happen is tomorrow you may give a certified copy of a resolution, which may be there, may not be there in the minutes. In fact, that about a year before, if I am not wrong, there is one female company secretary who was, in fact, if I am not wrong, she was arrested even for giving a wrong certification of a resolution. Unfortunately, what that company secretary did was, without checking with the minutes, she has certified a resolution which has been brought to her. And that was basically giving authority to the company to borrow the funds. That resolution was not there in the minutes at all. And the banker who has lent that money also made her a party as to the conspiracy. So one has, so these are that register may not be mandatory, but the register is a part of the system, good practices, which a company secretary should have institute in his company. All these things are like that. So considering the sensitivity of the issues, considering the activism of the regulators, you cannot say anything trivial. Everything is important for you. And especially most of the times what happens is that we give attention to the big ticket items and we forget about the smaller things, the finer points, and we leave it maybe to the junior most people. And ultimately that may land up in a soup. Now, another thing also happens is that when we say that the managements don't listen to me, you have to make them listen. Now, if you go and tell them that under section so and so this thing, under secretarial standard so and so this thing, nobody is going to listen to you. First and foremost thing is you have to sensitize your managements about the importance of the changes whenever they come in a right perspective. And at the same point of time, suppose, for example, when these kind of case laws are happening, these kind of instances are happening, these kind of penal provisions are being imposed, you do have to keep your CFO, CEO, managing directors posted on this so that they understand the sensitivity of the trivial issues also. And at the same point of time, you have to create how, that is up to you. You have to create and establish yourself in the organization that your say is also equally important. Yes, Makarand, go ahead. Wow, good.
And I would also like to conclude the presentation by saying some few words. So in the forthcoming years, the regulatory compliance requirement will be more stricter day by day, and the company secretary profession would definitely shine in this field and will be one of the most reputed and prestigious profession, since the company secretaries are possessing the organizational skill with keen eyes and also pro governance experts, coupled with very good drafting and communication skills, with better judgment skills and also an expert in planning. Thank you.
Yeah, now the forum is open for the participants to speak. If anybody wants to speak, please do speak, because I am sure that several senior people also are participants. And similarly, I also request Atul Bhai, who was the past president of ICSI, he can also say a few things about when he was a president that time, what are the new things, what he has instituted and how the things are shaping up and all those things. Yeah, we have full time with us. Saddam, you may unmute all the participants for some time, please.
Okay, there are some things on the chat box.
Okay.
GDSL company sector was even recognizing MCOM, the eligible qualifications of the companies with the information. Innovative training is the most important. That's what. There are a lot of training programs actually there. Even webinars have been organized by the institute across the country and all the things like that. We should take care of it. Then some congratulation message is there. And then training should focus the combination of the practical aspects of accounting law and the technology is a suggestion. And company secretaries, there is something here.
Makarand, you may stop sharing your screen.
Company secretary, the eyes and ears and the hands of the company secretary in the board in the brain. But it is repeatedly quoted yesterday. With the modern management being more glued to the production compliances, requirements, etc. and other thing, company secretary role as an absolute, that is already, that's a comment only. I recently took the COP and I see that the way protocol is set up to look after the claims is very, very tough for few PCS to acquire claims. Why do we have that depend upon the CS for our claims?
What is that? I couldn't get the question, Bala sir.
Question is, he's saying, the gentleman has taken the COP very recently.
Okay.
The way protocol is set up to look for the claims is very, very tough for the new PCS to acquire the claims. So we are depending upon the CS. Why should we that?
So what is the protocol established by ICSI, you meant to say?
Yeah, that is what it appears to be.
Whoever is the participant, he can unmute himself and he can talk. He can put the question, because the clarity, at least I haven't got the clarity of the question as such.
Rita, can you speak? Are you there? Reena? And one more thing, it is very sad to see that ICSI and ROC are not taking action against the CS companies who are lending their names due to the practical bargaining power of the CS who are in employment, who actually want to work and struggling to get a job. And even if they get the job, the pay is not up to the mark. Lending the name, I don't know what to say, Sudhakar.
Sir, that, we should not take up those kind of issue unless until we have an evidence. You see that, somebody may say, okay, by somebody is lending the name and all, institute is not taking action. But I don't think, that institute won't take any action provided proper evidence and other things are there. One has to build up the case properly, So these kind of post-call whisperings or murmurings are always there, that lending the name and all. But one thing I can say very well, under the present circumstances, if he is lending, anybody is lending his name still without having an iota of what is happening with his name in that company, only God can save him. That's what I can say.
Yeah, what you are saying is there, because in fact, one thing is there. To be very frank with you, yes, cases are there, but establishing evidence and other thing and all is a tough job. But one thing is that it cannot happen with the listed companies. It might happen with the unlisted companies and the private companies, etc. That is there actually. But unless until the things are brought into the light, what institute also can do. Institute cannot start investigating on their own and other things and all. That is there.
Since there are no more, people are not asking the questions, I can say one or two things more also, that quite often this issue comes. The company secretaries think company secretary is sufficient, or I have to become a chartered accountant, I have to become an MBA, I have to be this, I have to be that and all. With one degree itself, people are there who have done wonders. And with 3, 4, 4 degrees also, people are there who are measurable failures. This I have seen at least in my life. At the end of I always used to give one example in the my SMTP classes, that whether you have a table knife with you or AK-47, it is immaterial. Weapon will never fetch you the victory. It is the person who is behind the weapon who operates it. That depends upon him, whether he will succeed or he will get defeated. So whether it is 1 degree or 2 degrees, it is immaterial.
50 ವರ್ಷದಿಂದ ಪ್ರಾಕ್ಟೀಸ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದಾರೆ.
So if you are having one company secretary degree and you have in-depth knowledge and you have the ability to, is the limit for you. Yes. This is another issue, and most of the people think that other side of the pasture is always green. But you have to see that what your temperament and your attitude drives you. Some people, they don't like to do service. Some people, they want to go in practice. As Mr. Bhatia has mentioned, that he started in practice when the practice concept was not there. There were several senior professionals who were there like that when they used to do the practice, when the practice concept was not there at all. But I have seen some people, they are not getting a job because of that. They used to start practice without having the mindset, because practice requires a different set of mind and a different set of abilities and skill sets. Similarly, when you go with a service, again the same thing. So it is up to you to decide that whether your temperament allows you and drives you to what. You want to become your own boss and to serve 10 bosses, or in the organization you want to have one department and one boss. It is up to you. But I am not getting a client, don't join for a job. Or I am not getting a job, don't start your practice. That's what I can say.
Somebody is asking, in Madras Fertilizer case, was the CS the decision maker about issuing the gift card, or is it without the board's nod?
Because I think if I am not wrong, there the board says that they have not been advised by the company secretary that it is prohibited.
No. Whosoever is taking a decision, ultimately the company secretary's job to say what is right and what is wrong. He has failed to act on this. That is the short question. There is no point in discussing whether it is the decision maker, whether it is the board, not board, that is immaterial. The right thing has not been communicated to the board, which resulted to the whole issue. That is the thing here.
See, one more thing. See, that when people may say anything, say, for example, even in the Madras Fertilizer Limited case, the company secretary may say, look, I told the board, they are not listened to me and all different things. But sometimes what happens is, this is a small issue, he got get away. Suppose if there is a major issue, then what will happen? So there, what one has to do is that you have to put your view across to the board in a tactful way, and also have a kind of documentary evidence also. So what you can do always is, when you are advising the board, put an email stating that, look, under SS2 so-and-so provision and all those things, distribution of gift card is not permitted. It is rather prohibited. And that will lead to penal consequences. If you don't do all these things, then obviously you will be in trouble.
There is Rajagopalan is writing, I'm sorry to say that the role of the company secretary, which is a very important role and the crucial for the company's growth and the compliances, is always subdued by the board, and the professional excellence of the company secretary is not fully utilized, exploited, which is a great loss to the company. This should change, and the board should actually recognize the role of the company secretary and take her guidance, which is in the interest of the company. See, here again, the question comes actually.
I am sorry to say this thing, but I worked with a very closely held group also, and I worked for the largest company in India also. At every point of time, people will certainly listen to you, provided you tell the way you are supposed to. Number one. Number two, please don't underestimate the promoters and the management also. They know that what is right, what is wrong. But the only thing is, you have to sensitize them in an appropriate way. Board don't listen to the company secretary, I don't agree with that. Even in the closely held companies also, they listen to you, provided you place the things in a proper way. At least I did this throughout my life.
I am fully in agreement with you, Sudhakar. Let me also share with you. It is not that this is not utilized or something like that. In fact, I held the position of the company secretary and the head of the internal audit also at certain times in a listed company. And the unlisted public company and a private company, I worked beyond the age of 67, I would say, 5 years. So that time also, the people were definitely were giving the due importance to the company secretary. It is the way in which you actually come out with the courage of conviction and with the things of putting the things with your skill set that makes the difference. Because you can't say that the board is not utilizing if you are not performing your part on the first side.
Say, for example, as a secretarial auditor, tomorrow you say that, look, my friend is there in a particular company and he got me the secretarial audit, and there is a major non-compliance, and if I put the non-compliance, that my friend will be in trouble. Because of that, can you stop qualifying your report for your friend's sake? Because that is number one. Number two is that, suppose sometimes this also question comes, if I qualify the report, the company may not give me the audit in the next time. If you are worrying about the audit or these kind of things and you are not qualifying the report, you yourself will be in trouble tomorrow. So it is up to you to take a call. And see how best you can help him on the company. But if there is a major non-compliance, there is no way out. You have to qualify the report, or you have to qualify the report and go and advise the company to go for compounding or whatever it is there.
Whatever it is, ultimately, in the end of the day, we should do the things right. Even do the right at the first time. That should be the concept, whether it is the employment, whether it is the practice, whatever it is.
Correct.
That's all the questions I have here.
If there is no questions, I think it is 12:58. We have 2 more minutes, otherwise we can wind up the session.
Yes, Dipti, we can call it a day.
Okay. So I think it was a best webinar. And I never expected that people will also participate. They all participate very well. I really appreciate everyone's contribution, and especially all the seniors. I really owe all this profession, all professor, owe everyone. And I must say that we have crossed long way and still a very long way to go ahead. But we all are ready, and path is like that only. And we have to keep on preparing ourselves, which one of the way is what we are doing. And we tried our best to provide as Sudhakar, and we have developed the word professional social responsibility, because we have got so much things from this profession, and we want now each one of us equally competent like us, so that we can take ahead the profession name internationally. Thanks a lot. Thank from Bhatia Sahib. Thank Pramod Bhai. Thank you, Sudhakar. Thank you, Balaji. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Meet yet another session. Have a good weekend. Thank you.
I would like to thank all the panelists for sharing their experience and valuable information. And thank you everyone for attending and participating in the webinar. Thank you so much.
Appreciation to you for Makarand. Good presentation you have prepared. Very nice.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Makarand.